Good morning. Surprising as it may seem, we are having difficulty getting past a certain hump. I feel it in the questions, I hear it in the tone of the letters, and I recognize it in the way we sit together and still feel a kind of strain inside. Now, I am not condemning. I am acknowledging what is, so that this very hour we may see it clearly enough to step over it. The hump is this. We keep trying to make something happen. We push, we prod, we marshal words and will and mental pressure, and then we wonder why the Christ activity seems absent. Do you see that? We think faith is more effort, louder words, stronger affirmations, longer treatments, and tighter concentration. We imagine that if we clench thoroughly enough around God words, the miracle will appear. And so our silence becomes noisy with self-trying. Our prayer becomes a bargaining table. Our meditation becomes a wrestling match with our own thoughts. And when nothing breaks open, we feel guilty or unworthy or unprepared. And then we try again with a heavier hand. Do you follow that? That is the hump. Not disbelief, overbelief in personal effort. Now here is the paradox I want you to hear, without sensationalism. Miracles are never forced. They are allowed. Be still is not poetry. It is procedure. It is law. Grace functions as you and I cease from our own works. When the personal self grows quiet, the presence that was never absent is recognized, and in that recognition, the works appear. Not because we persuaded God, not because we educated error, but because the only activity acting is the Christ. Do you see that? This is not entertainment, and not another metaphysical exercise. This is shared inquiry into what the Master assumed we already understood. In a few minutes, you will hear his premise stated clearly. But first, let us settle this in ourselves. I cannot do this for you. Frankly, I can't do it for you. Nor can the writings or the recordings do it for you. They can point. They cannot substitute. If I could hand you my consciousness for the hour, it would still be your task to embody it tomorrow morning, when the phone rings and the pressure comes. Reading is a doorway. Realization is the room. So today, we are not going to wring demonstrations out of heaven. We are not going to bait the divine with better phrases. We are going to learn the unlearning, the surrender of personal effort in favor of interior acknowledgement. We will consider why Jesus' life moved as it did, why words fail and stillness succeeds, and how to sit until the inner movement is felt. But even now you may begin. Drop the attempt. Let the breath soften. Refuse the habit of making. Allow. Be still is your first and last instruction. And in that stillness, quietly, without parade, the activity of the Christ reveals itself as sufficiency. That, my friends, is the path over the hump. Now let us hear what the Master assumed you knew. He did not hide it. He spoke it as plainly as a man can speak. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. And again, the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Not poetry, not modest rhetoric to win a congregation, a statement of spiritual law. Do you see that? He never attributed a single work to personal will, personal mind, personal goodness, or personal understanding. He rested in an identity that knew the doer of all spiritual action is the presence within. If you will notice, when the works appeared, there was no drumbeat of self. There was no, watch me. There was a transparency. The Father doeth the works. And so, if we would understand why our trying breaks our back and produces nothing but fatigue, we must accept this same premise as the foundation of our practice. I, in my own self, can do nothing. The initiative, the wisdom, the power, the law are not in the personal sense of me. God, as the life of me, is the doer. God, as the mind of me, is the light. God, as the being of me, is the law unto every circumstance. Do you follow that? Now, before you hear that as passivity, let me correct the impulse to swing to the other ditch. This is not laziness. This is authorship rightly placed. This is not ignoring your human responsibilities. This is refusing to supply them with human strain. You will still meet your appointments, sign your name, wash your dishes, give your answer. But inwardly, the posture changes. Instead of, "How am I going to pull this off?" it becomes, "Father, I am a willing instrument. I can of my own self do nothing. Let thy grace be the sufficiency here." And then you wait, not idly, but receptively, until the inner movement, sometimes a quiet yes, sometimes a gentle no, sometimes only a release, signals the action. Then you act, and the act bears witness that the source was not you. This is not duality. This is not turning to a far-off God to come down and rescue a poor creature. No. This is merely the end of the pretense of separate authorship and the recognition that God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. The Master said, "I and the Father are one." And in that oneness, he refused personal credit and personal burden. Do you see how his very power is the evidence that personal effort is not the source? If personal effort were the power, the world would have saved itself by now through better thoughts and tighter wills. But the works appear where the self grows transparent and the withinness of God is acknowledged. So take this as your working premise, not as a slogan you admire for an hour. Begin your day, your call, your task, your help to another with that interior declaration: I can of my own self do nothing. Father within, do the works. I will be still enough to know. I will be willing enough to let. And then permit the grace that is already present to prove itself as sufficiency. That is the assumption Jesus lived, and that is the ground from which our so-called miracles flow without strain. Do you see that? Now, if the Father within doeth the works, we must be very clear on who and where this Father is. Otherwise, we go right back to pleading with a sky god or bargaining with a doctrine. Here is the revelation that removes the strain. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. Not partly, not occasionally, not when we are holy and the sun is shining. Always. God is the life of you. God is the mind that knows as you. God is the presence that constitutes you. Do you see that? This is why prayer becomes heavy when we picture a distant throne. We reach and never arrive, and the fatigue becomes our testimony. But there is no distance. There is no ladder to climb. There is only a turning, a gentle yielding to the withinness that already is. This is not duality. This is not a me over here and a God over there trying to converge by effort. This is the recognition of one presence, one life, one I, showing up here as you and as me. When the Master said, "I and the Father are one," he did not mean a truce between two. He meant oneness, indivisibility, being. Now, see what that means for what we call miracles. If God is your being, help is not shipped in from heaven like a parcel with postage on it. Help is revealed. It is uncovered as the mist of personal authorship evaporates. The supply was not absent. The guidance was not mute. The peace was not hiding. Our strain covered it. Our fear argued it away. When we yield in stillness, we do not persuade God to enter. We stop pretending God was out. Then the activity of the Christ, already present as your very life, appears as sufficiency. Do you follow that? Moses heard, "Take off thy shoes, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground." That is not museum language. That is present instruction. The holiness is not in the geography. It is in the presence that constitutes you and saturates the moment where you are. Kitchen, clinic, office, bus stop. The altar is where you are because God is where you are as your being. And the act of removing the shoes? It is the interior undressing of the sense of a separate self trying to make God happen. It is the reverent acknowledgement. I will stand bare to what is already here. And so stillness is not a trick to catch God's attention. Stillness is the end of self-assertion so the fact may register. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. In that recognition, the sense of two fades, the clutching relaxes, and the quiet movement begins to be felt. Sometimes as warmth, sometimes as a soft yes or no, sometimes simply as peace that needs no words. That is the first appearing of grace, not added to you, but as you, through you. Let this be our living premise as we go on. The altar is your present awareness. The priest is your willingness. The sacrifice is the old authorship. And the fire is the Christ already glowing within. The place whereon I stand is holy ground, here, now. Be still long enough to let that be true for you. Then watch how life, without strain, bears witness to the one who is the life of you. Do you see that? Now, why is it that words so often fail us and silence succeeds? It is because mental motion keeps the little I in the driver's seat. And when the I is driving, it must keep its hands busy on every lever, planning, affirming, persuading, correcting, arranging outcomes, measuring progress. Do you see that? And this very busyness is the veil. It is the mist of self-authorship that covers the presence. The Master said, "I can of mine own self do nothing." And yet we attempt to do everything of our own selves, and then sprinkle holy phrases over it and call it prayer. That is why it grows heavy. Let us be plain. The greatest achievements have come when there have been no words and no thoughts. Not because thinking is wicked, not because language is sinful, but because there is a realm of awareness in which the personal doer has stepped aside and the Father within doeth the works. In that realm, words are after-the-fact labels, thoughts are echoes. The action is the presence itself, and it needs no prompting from us. Do you follow that? Now you can prove this in your own experience. When you are trying hardest, notice how much I is operating. I must get this demonstration. I must hold to the truth. I must conquer fear. I must fix this body, this bill, this relationship. The very sound of it tells you who is on the stage. And as long as that actor is performing, grace is rendered an idea, not an activity. Do you see that? The mind's clatter is not evil, but it is noisy enough to drown the whisper that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not, Be loud and make me move. Be still and know. Stillness is not a technique to get God to act. Please hear that, or you will turn silence into another tool for the self. Stillness is the end of personal strain, so that God's action can be recognized as already present. In the quiet, the authorship shifts. It is no longer, I am making something happen, but I am a willing instrument. Father within, let thy grace be the sufficiency here. And then nothing, no words, no thoughts, until the inner movement is felt. Sometimes it comes as a soft relaxation that says, it is finished. Sometimes it is a clear impulse, yes or no, without argument. Sometimes it is only peace, and that peace, without sentences, does more than our finest speeches. Here is your simple operational rule. The moment you feel strain begin, you have already shifted from grace to effort. That is your bell. Do not scold yourself. Do not double the effort. Stop. Close the door of the senses. Turn within and admit, I can of mine own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. Let thy grace be the sufficiency. And wait, 2 minutes, 3, 5, until the I relaxes and the presence is again the only actor on the stage. Then, if an action is to be taken, take it. If a word is to be spoken, speak it. If nothing is to be done, do nothing. But let the doing be done by God as your very being, not by a frightened mind beating its wings against the window. Do you see that? In that way, words will again become servants of realization, not substitutes for it. And thought will resume its rightful place, quiet, clean, transparent to the activity of the Christ. Now let us bring this right down to what you call healing, supply, harmony in relationships, and all of the practical arenas in which you think you have to make something happen. You are not contending with a person, a body, a bank account, or a circumstance. You are meeting a belief, a claim, an appearance. Do you see that? The moment you believe you have a sick person to overcome, or a rebellious organ to subdue, or a hostile employer to conquer, or a stubborn bank book to coerce, you have placed yourself in competition with matter, with medicine, with money, with personalities, and you will tire yourself trying to outshout those gods. But you haven't got a person or a thing to change. You have got a belief to meet in your own consciousness. Suppose I come to you with all the sincerity in the world and I say, 2 times 2 are 5. Now what are you going to do? Are you going to grab my pencil, argue with my face, or massage the paper until it adds up correctly? No. You do not fight the person or the figures. You correct the belief where belief lives, in consciousness. Quietly, without strain, you stand in the light that knows 2 times 2 are 4. And in that light, the error has no power. It is not that you killed an arithmetic devil or healed a diseased digit. You witness the nothingness of a claim by resting in what is. Do you follow that? Carry that into sickness. You do not fight a body. You do not wrestle a germ. You meet a claim, an appearance, as belief within yourself. Where can you meet a belief except within your own awareness? Carry it into lack. You do not scold a bank book or hypnotize a paycheck. You meet the universal suggestion that supply is outside of God, outside of your being. Carry it into fear, into conflict. You do not conquer a neighbor or discipline a government. You meet suggestion, claim, appearance. And the meeting is not with clenched fists of mind. It is with quiet recognition. God is law, and there is no other law. Now hear the negation, because it is necessary to cut the cords. Not laws of matter, not laws of heredity, not laws of climate or diet, not laws of medical belief or calendar or geography, not laws of economics, not laws of accident, not laws of sin or purity, not psychic currents or planetary hours. Only God as law. Only the life that is your life as law, unto all that concerns you. Do you see that? The instant you try to meet a condition out there, you are in competition with materia medica, with therapies, with pills, with policies. The instant you recognize, I have a belief to meet, you are removed from competition. For you turn to the one arena where law is law, your consciousness. And how is belief met? By stillness. If the claim is in belief, the correction must occur where belief is met. So you close the door of the senses and you become very, very quiet. Not to beg, not to arm wrestle a symptom, to acknowledge, I can of mine own self do nothing. Father within, thy grace be the sufficiency. God is individual being, God is my being. God alone is law here. Then wait, until the inner movement is felt, until the pressure lifts, until the presence is again the only actor. That is the 2 times 2 equals 5 correction in practice. The so-called miracle is not a battle won over a condition. It is the yielding of belief to the presence of God as the only law. And then the harmony appears without strain. Do you see that? And so let us say it plainly, without any drum roll. The secret law behind what the world calls miracles is the law of grace, the impersonal activity of the Christ, functioning the moment personal effort is surrendered. Not my cleverness, not your intensity, not an arsenal of phrases. Grace. Do you see that? The Master lived under this law as naturally as you breathe. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within, He doeth the works. That is not mystical ornament. It is procedure. It is law. Now, how do you bring yourself under that law consciously? You adopt, not as poetry, but as interior instruction, a simple script that places authorship where it belongs. Quietly, without display, you turn within and say, Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this situation, condition, relationship, body, supply. And then you abide, poised, unhurried, refusing to be hypnotized by the evidence on the senses, not pushing spirit with mind, allowing grace to be what it already is. Do you follow that? This allowing is not passivity. Stillness is active receptivity. It is a listening that holds its ground in the face of appearances. It says, I will not argue with symptoms, figures, forecasts, or faces. I will not bargain with them, nor rehearse them. I will be still and know. That knowing is not a thought you force. It is the recognition that God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. Therefore, the law operating here is the law of God, and there is no other law to consult. Not laws of matter, not the calendar's threats, not the ledger's mood. Only grace as sufficiency. Do you see that? Let me outline it simply so you can carry it into the next hour. The moment you feel the strain begin, Stop. Close the door of the senses. Turn within and acknowledge, I in my own self can do nothing. Then speak within as one handing over the authorship. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this situation, condition, relationship, body, supply. Now wait. Not blankness, attentiveness. Wait until the inner movement is felt, a lifting, a warmth, a quiet yes or no, or the peace that says, it is finished. When that comes, act if action is given. Be silent if silence is given. But let the doing be done by the presence as your very being. The Father doeth the works. If you will do this, you will witness that what we call miracles are not exceptions but overflows. Grace recognized, no longer blocked by the little eye with its levers and alarms. And this must not remain literature. The infinite way is not a message, it is an experience. In our next minutes, we will sit together and let this law verify itself as peace. For now, take this into your own heart. I am a willing instrument. I'm willing to be still and let you be God. Thy grace, sufficiency, here and now. Do you see that? Now, let us do it. Wherever you are, close the door of the senses, as much as you can for this moment. No fixing, no rehearsing the story, no explaining to yourself why it ought to work, no bargaining. Let the hands rest. Let the eyes be soft. Let the breath be as it is. We are not going out to meet anything. We are turning gently within, where the presence already is. Do you see that? Say quietly within yourself, not as magic words, but as permission. God is my being. And let that rest. God is my being. A little silence. The Father is within. A little silence. I am willing to be still and let you be God. And we wait, alert, not drowsy, receptive, not forcing. If a concern floats up, do not chase it and do not swat it. Acknowledge it as a passing cloud. Belief, appearance, suggestion. Then return, quietly. God is my being. The Father within doeth the works. I in my own self can do nothing. Thy grace be the sufficiency here. And we wait again. If there is a decision before you, do not weigh and argue. Ask simply, within, as one who has handed over the authorship. Father, is this for us right now? And then wait. No mental courtroom, no building of cases, just the listening. Yes, no, or the release that says, not now. Do you follow that? Now, as we sit, you may feel restlessness. You may feel the itch to fix, to hurry, to get on with it. You may hear fear knocking, doubt whispering that nothing is happening. These are not failures. They are the old self announcing its habit of management. Let them be. Do not push them away. Do not bring them tea. Let them come. Let them go. Return to the truth gently. God is my being. The Father is within. I am willing to be still and let you be God. Wait until the inner movement is felt. It may be a warmth in the chest, a softening in the brow, a quiet assurance without sentences, or simply a detachment from the claim, as if a hook is let go. Do not call it a result. Do not grab it by the collar. Recognize it as the first evidence of Christ's activity, the presence taking the stage as the only actor. In that very recognition, add nothing. No congratulations to yourself, no rush to announce. Just abide a moment more in the hush. If an impulse rises, call, write, rest, walk. Take it without argument. If nothing rises, let the nothing be holy. Stillness is the action. This is not duality. We are not summoning a far-off God. We are ceasing from our own works, so the one who is our very life may be seen doing its own. And now, as we open our eyes or return to the room, resist the grasping after sensations. Do not hunt for that warmth again. Do not measure the hour by appearances. The proof is peace, an inward poise that does not lean on outward change. Hold to that, gently. When pressure appears, you know the doorway. God is my being, the Father within. I am willing to be still and let you be God. And wait until the inner movement is felt. Do you see that? Now comes the simple, ordinary place where many of us lose the thread. We rise from stillness clear and quiet, and in 15 minutes the old manager is back balancing ledgers in the mind, interviewing every fear, scheduling outcomes on a timetable. And then, of course, the battle has to be fought all over again. Do you see that? Nothing has failed in spirit. Only the habit of personal authorship has resumed its post. The press in the chest, the hurry in the head, the tight voice, these are not omens of doom. They are your bell. They say, you have re-entered the little I. That is your moment, not to try harder, but to stop. Here is your practical test and your practical remedy. The instant you feel pressure, you have taken back the pin. Close the door of the senses, even for half a minute, and reset. Quietly, within, without drama. I can of mine own self do nothing. I need seek nothing, desire nothing, acquire nothing. Thy grace is sufficient. The Father within doeth the works. And then wait, 10 seconds, 20, until a soft loosening comes, a breath you didn't know you were holding releases. The inner floor steadies. Do you follow that? Then return to your task, but as instrument, not as author. Make this your way of walking through a day. Micro-stillnesses. At the sink, before the call. In the car park, between emails. Not to get God to come, but to cease denying the God already present. This is not duality. This is merely the end of pretending that a separate mind is running the universe. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. The grace that was present in the chair is present at the counter and the conference. The only difference is our willingness to stop leaning on our own understanding and to acknowledge the one within. Now, about measuring, please do not dig up the seed every hour to see if it has roots. Do not put a stopwatch on grace. That is the old author trying to reclaim the script. Grace is not manipulated, managed, negotiated, or bribed. It is allowed. It unfolds by its own rhythm, not yours, because its law is wholeness, not hurry. Your part is the refusal to return to strain and the quick return to recognition whenever pressure appears. Do you see that? The proof will be peace first, and then, as needed, the form that answers the need, but without your whip hand on its back. So write this within yourself as a living rule. When pressure speaks, I stop. I turn. I acknowledge. I can of mine own self do nothing. I need seek nothing, desire nothing, acquire nothing. Thy grace is sufficient. The Father doeth the works. I wait until the inner movement is felt. Then I proceed. In this way, the one still moment becomes a way of being, and the day is saved from 1,000 small wars fought by an author who never had the power to begin with. Do you see that? Now what happens when someone comes to you with a need? Sickness, fear, lack, confusion, and asks for help. Here is where our old training rushes in with sympathy speeches, positive pep, and 5-point plans. But no, let us not offer personal strength, personal positivity, or endless discussion. Let us go to God together. Do you see that? Right there, before telling stories, before taking a history, before building a case for hope or a case against fear, we say, quietly, inwardly or aloud if fitting, "Come, let us turn within." Because the help must come as the activity of the Christ, or it is nothing but talk. And be very clear on this point, so you are safe from pride and safe from despair. Frankly, I can't do it for you, nor can the writings or the recordings do it for you. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within doeth the works. One touch of the Christ is enough. And it does not emanate from my personal understanding or your personal deserving. It is grace, and we are instruments. Do you follow that? We are not projecting power into them. We are consenting to Christ's activity as the only healer, the only law. Practically, it is like this. When the call or the knock comes, set aside the impulse to fix. Say, "Let us go to God together." Then close the door of the senses. No show, no performance. Sit in the same stillness you have been practicing and meet the claim where claims live, in consciousness. Not a person to change, not a body to fight, not a bank book to scold. A belief, an appearance, a suggestion to be recognized as nothing in the light of what is. As you turn within, let the interior declaration be simple and impersonal. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition. God is individual being. God is their being as surely as God is my being. God alone is law here. Then wait until the inner movement is felt. Do you see that? If, as you sit, you feel pressure to diagnose, to argue, to chant phrases at the condition, recognize 2 times 2 equals 5 at work and refuse to meet it on its paper. You are not competing with medicine or methods or minds. You are withdrawing competition by acknowledging one law. And when peace comes, or that quiet yes or no, or the release that says, "It is finished," act only as the impulse gives. Maybe a word of reassurance is given, maybe silence, maybe a simple instruction like, "Rest," or, "We will speak tomorrow." But let there be no show, no ego, no special gift identity. The Father doeth the works. And above all, never bind a soul to yourself. A man or a woman sins when they leave you believing that they in any wise need them. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. Our privilege is to make our brother free, not dependent, to reveal by practice that the same presence you touched as peace is their very life. Teach them the same doorway, micro-stillness, inner acknowledgement, waiting for the movement. Then go your way without taking credit and without taking blame. To help is to become transparent, meeting belief in consciousness and allowing Christ activity without personal power or personal glory. Thy grace, sufficiency, here and now. Do you see that? Now let us be finished with this once and for all. A man or a woman sins when they leave you in the position of believing that you in any wise need them. Do you see that? If these words, these classes, these recordings leave you clinging to me, I have failed you. I would rather tear them all up than make one more dependent student. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. The point of every sentence spoken here is that you may discover for yourself, as your own awareness, that God is individual being, your being, and that you can live from that without leaning on personalities or props. Do you follow that? Put books, talks, and methods in their place. As long as they remain in a book, they aren't of any more value than literature. Reading is preparatory. It is not power. Hearing is preparatory. It is not healing. When, however, you embody even one principle as consciousness, then the scripture has left the page and become life. The infinite way is not a message. It is an experience. I can't do it for you, nor can the words do it for you. You must make the interior turn and live from it, directly. Here is your daily rule. Simple enough for a child, and strong enough to part seas of habit. Several times a day, 3 to 5 minutes at a time, do nothing but go within. No words if possible, no thoughts if possible. Just the gentle acknowledgement, I in my own self can do nothing. Father within, thy grace is the sufficiency. Then wait, alert, unhurried, until the inner movement is felt. That is all. Not to get God to act, but to cease denying God already present. Between tasks, before calls, at red lights, at the sink, micro-stillness. This is the miracle life. Not fireworks, not performances, but the steady refusal to return to strain. Why so often? Because world belief is hypnotic. Every billboard, headline, calendar, and conversation chants the liturgy of a personal self running a personal universe. 2 times 2 are 5. Push, hurry, fear. Do you see that? It takes repetition to break hypnosis, not to convince God, but to awaken you. Each returning to stillness loosens the old spell by an inch, and soon the habit of authorship has no chair left to sit on. The peace begins to precede you. Decisions simplify themselves. The day lays down its weapons. Do not mistake simplicity for triviality. The Master said, we must become as little children. This is not childishness. It is holy surrender to what already is. No badges, no memberships, no talismans. No more shall you worship in this mountain or in that temple, but in spirit and in truth. When pressure speaks, you stop. You turn. You acknowledge, I can of mine own self do nothing. Thy grace, sufficiency here. You wait for the inner movement. Then you proceed, without hurry, without fear, without leaning. In this you will find the lasting miracle. Inner freedom. Dependence ended on people, systems, and strain. Reliance restored to God within. Do you see that?